everyone, it's Amy, owner and curator of YosoBoho. Welcome back to my channel and happy Thanksgiving. It is Thursday night and we're not thrifting tonight. We're actually going to be talking about Tonala Pottery. I've been talking about Tonala Pottery for a while now, and I sat down and did a little bit of research, looked at my things, made some discoveries, and I'm just here to share that with you. Now, I am not a Tonala Pottery expert by any means. I'm just a girl who Googled and assembled some things. So if you know more and you can give us some more information, please feel free to drop some information below. We are all trying to learn. I just thought since I had collected so much of it, maybe I should learn a thing or two. And since I have, I'll share it with you. So that is all this is. I hope you enjoy it. Let's take a look at my collection and then let's get into some of the things that I've learned. If you've been with the channel for a while, you know that I have my Tonala collection back in this corner of my dining room. I have a very giant piece down there. I have separated these into shelves that will make it easier for me to kind of talk about the different kinds of Tonala that I've run into and their differences, and I'll kind of get in here and show you. This top two areas, you can see that they kind of look like a sandstone, and they have a contrast between the body of the piece and the paint, which we'll get into a little bit. But you can see I got these all kind of separated up here. They have a very common kind of coloration, the similar kind of birds and flowers. These right here, this salt and pepper set, I actually purchased from Laura Caldwell, Left Coast Revival. She has a website I ordered them from a little ways back. This is one of my newest pieces that I found while I was thrifting. I believe he came from a Goodwill. This big guy, he was an auction piece. Big duck. Most everything is from auction or thrift store. I want to say this piece right here was an antique shop, but it was, I think, $12, so I would call that thrifted. Now, once we get down here, you'll notice a difference. They don't have that contrast between the rough and the smooth, right? They're all smooth. These down here are even a little bit more different. Brighter, whiter, except for that blue guy back there. Got that from my friend Joyce. Got these two pieces right here from my friend Kim. Little frog in this beautiful little cup. But you notice here, they look really high shine, almost like they're glazed, you know. But they're not. They are burnished. These are just more modern, and, you know, they're using a whitewash on these. Still says Tonala. That is an artist signature. You can see I spent $3 on this one at a Goodwill. Pretty bird. He had an accident where his little crown was knocked off and somebody glued him. And that's fine by me. He can sit in my collection. Let's talk about how these things are made and who made them. What's interesting about Tonala Pottery is it is not glazed. It is fired one time, and even though it looks like it has a glaze on it, it does not. So how do they make this? This magic. They cast these pieces. So this little owl went into a little owl mold, and he was, you know, formed in there, born in there, pulled out of the mold. They may have had to add his little feet or something. And then he was dried, probably in the sun. And after he's nice and dry and can be held and handled, he's painted. Now he's painted with what's called a slip. It's really, really thin clay. It's very runny, and the colors are actually added to that. So what's neat about Tonala is all of these colors are natural. So that blue came from maybe a berry or a leaf, maybe an avocado leaf created that blue. And the browns, same thing. Maybe they're from some other kind of fruit or peel or, you know, something out of nature, some sort of leaf. The artists, they figure out how to make different color dyes. And when they make the dye, they add it to the slip, and that becomes the paint that they use. They paint on those dyes right with the kind of wet clay. And then once it's all painted, they go back and they add a little bit of water to a little area and they rub it. They rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it. They use like a stone, maybe a piece of metal, something hard, but they rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it. The whole thing gets a good rub down, and that's what is actually creating this nice shine. Because then it's fired. It's put right in the kiln. It's fired up, and that's it. It doesn't get like a final coat or anything. It comes out because it's been burnished. Brunido. It's a neat thing to say. That's how they're born. That's how they're made. It's interesting because these pieces up here, they don't have that whole slip applied. So although they might be burnished throughout, they left this kind of naked clay so you can get that high contrast between the dye where they put on the slip and the clay. And that's why the slip is a little bit raised even off of the clay. So that is how they're made. Now, who made them? There are lots of big names in Tonala. The biggest of them all is probably Ken Edwards, which is that bowl right there. Ken Edwards signed is usually just a K-E. I have seen a full Ken Edwards signature though. Nothing that I own, but normally it's a K-E, and here he did a little duck, just put Mexico on. And this is interesting because he used something on here that almost looks metallic. Like when it burned, it burned whatever it was, and it has a metal look to it, which is kind of fabulous. Absolutely beautiful. The other big name in Tonala is Jorge Wilmot. I do not have any of his work, but there's a ton of other names. I have seen Palomar, I've seen Palacios, I've seen Galvan. Galvan is like a big deal. He did huge pieces. I'm sure bigger than this. Like real big, massive pieces he's famous for. Interesting enough, this piece is also Ken Edwards. See the K-E? And he's got a little tiny character there. I'm guessing this is a little bit older for him. Look at the work on this. It's absolutely huge. And can you imagine all the burnishing? Lots and lots of burnishing. And again, there's this kind of cool, I don't know what he put in the dye that gives it that kind of metallic look, but very neat. Galvan made even bigger pieces. Also, I've heard of Salvador Vasquez, Mateos. I know I have a couple of signed Mateos pieces, not that I could tell you which ones they are. I believe they look like that. But lots and lots of different artists. And the families take the craft very seriously. They try and keep the tradition alive in their family. A maestro could be a grandfather or a great-grandfather even, the master painter. You know, he has generations of artists below him that are usually related, and it's kind of neat. It's just kind of neat when you think about it, and when you look at a collection like this and you realize all of the work, all of the history. Let's talk a little bit about the history. Let me turn this camera around. We'll talk for a second. So what did I learn about the history of pottery in Mexico? It's old. Pottery has been around forever. I mean, that you see that all over the planet, right? Anyone that discovered that like mixing dirt with water made something hard that could hold water, you know, vessels, that happened everywhere. But back, you know, when Cortez came into Mexico and took over, in came the Spanish influence and the European influence. So things like casts and molds and a potter's wheel, which was, a European thing, came into play with some of the things that were being made. So things just kind of, took a different direction. And the style, the painting, I mentioned Talavera. So Talavera is a Spanish place. And the pottery from that region of Spain has come over and is made in different areas of Mexico. I believe Puebla, Mexico. And I'll share some of these things on a map as I'm kind of talking about them. But I keep talking about Talavera. Let me show you what it is. Talavera is actually Majolica. So it's cast just like these pieces are. Unlike the natural process of the Tonala, Talavera is taken out of the mold and it is dried and then it is low fired. So it's made really hard and then it's dipped in this whitewash. You can see it inside here. You can see it right here. And that is like a tin glaze. It's like a leaded glaze. And then it's stenciled and painted on top of that. And then it's high fired. And that's what creates this like really shiny glazed look, because this is glazed. There's no burnishing here. It's all painted in this beautiful bright colors and then high fired to create this. So most of this is like a tin glaze and these colors. I'm not sure the history of the colors of Talavera. I'm sure they have a similar history, but like these are like fruits and veggies and these have taken a turn towards more chemical, I would say. They have some lead and some tin in them. Not all of them, because there are utilitarian pieces where the firing process, makes sure that you could use them and not get lead poisoning, I would hope. Some other terms that you might hear when you're talking about Tonala pottery, and I will share some photos here as I discuss them. So one of them is bandera. Bandera is the flag. The colors of Mexico, of course, are red, white, and green. So you might see a lot of Mexican pottery with the bandera design, the red, white, and green design. Another term is petatio, and petatio is a crosshatch design. It was a way of kind of creating this textured background with this crosshatch, and that is something you'll see on older Tonala. Another term you might hear is Tlaquepaque. It comes from a region, it's kind of like right next door to Tonala, and the difference when a lot of people say that's Tlaquepaque is that it's not so much like floral and animal based. It has a scene, so like a city scene or a country scene where you might see a person, sometimes like a man in a sombrero, resting. That is very typical of Tlaquepaque pottery. So if you see it, you kind of can identify it that way. Although there are like 500 pottery centers of Mexico, which is a lot of pottery centers, I want to share a couple other pottery areas with you that I have actually had pieces from these areas. I no longer have them in my possession because I've sold them, but I want to introduce you to them so that you can keep an eye out for them because they're beautiful and they do sell very well. The first one is Oaxaca pottery. Oaxaca pottery is blackware. So the clay in this area has aluminum in it. It kind of starts as like an orange pottery, but when it's fired, it turns black and it is gorgeous. It comes from an area called Coyotepeque. It's really identifiable. You can't mistake it. So keep your eye out for it. The other area that I want to talk about is Metepec. So in Metepec, there are potters who make these really extravagant tree of life candelabras. And I have had one. It was a small one. It was probably about this big. But they make them so they are huge. They make them on these wire frames. They wrap clay all around them. And some of them are cast, like some of the areas are cast, some are hand molded, but they have an Adam and Eve on them and then all of the things of life. So it's like a tree and it has animals and fruits and all these different things, like all kind of, representing life. And they're painted beautifully. They are also dipped in white. They're fired. They're so bright and colorful. They're just simply amazing. If you ever see one, scoop it up. You probably won't want to let it go, but they do sell for good money. I know that for a fact. Have you been collecting Tonala pottery? Seems like some of my friends are. I have been collecting it for probably a couple of years now. And like I said, I've been really lucky kind of running into it at the thrift stores. And I think my last thrift store find was this huge duck right here. He was one of those, when I saw him, I almost dropped my my camera and my heart. And then this is also, this Ken Edwards bowl is a newer piece from an estate sale. And oh, I'm so lucky to have that piece. There are some other forms out there that I'd love to run into. I've seen fish. I'd love to have a fish. I have a lot of birds. So maybe I'll start to kind of gift and, you know, sort out my birds for some other kind of cooler, different things. We'll see. I do love my collection, but yeah, I think it's time to let some things go, bring in some new, kind of experiment a little bit. Now that I know what I'm looking for and looking at, maybe I won't grab it all. Maybe I'll leave some for somebody else to start a collection or add to theirs. I can maybe evolve mine a little bit. So if you're collecting, let me know in the comments below. Tell me what you're collecting, what you've seen, and tell me, you know, fill in the gaps. If I've missed something or didn't talk about something and you know something, like I said before, please let us know too. That's what I love about this community, is everybody's learning. And me too. I love that part of it. I love to learn, and I love to learn from other people and share everything that I'm learning. So, hey, I really appreciate you. If you're still here with me, I love you. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for learning about Tonala with me. It's been kind of a cool thing. If you are still around and you have not subscribed, please do that. Subscribe to the channel and then click that little alarm button. Set it to all so you know when I put up a new video, which happens a couple of times a week. And while you're clicking around down there, hit a like or a dislike. And the best thing that you can do is share my channel out. Share me with a friend. Tell them that you found a friend who likes to thrift and treasure hunt just like you and learn new things. And maybe they'll come over and join our little YosoBoho tribe. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Hope to see you next week. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. We're gonna go shopping. We're gonna go thrifting, see what we can find. All right, I love you all. Please take care. Happy Thanksgiving.